You are now watching lesson 17, and here you will learn how to code your program to read and write string values. In programming, a string consists of text characters. These characters may be any of the characters found in the alphabet, or it can be special characters like symbols or a space. Numeric characters can also be string values, but if you handle a number as a string data type, you will not be able to do calculations. In a future lesson, you will learn how to work with numbers. In Delphi, we have many string properties. Some of the string properties that you will use often is the text property of an edit, the caption property of a label or a form. You've already used caption properties. You changed captions for labels and forms, and you also set captions for buttons and bit buttons. The rich edit and memo components display their text in a special property that is a collection of lines. The lines are also string values. List boxes and combo boxes also display their text in a special property that is a collection of items. And the items are also string values. In previous lessons, you worked with the caption properties of labels and forms. You learned how to write code to assign text values or strings to captions. In those lessons, you learned that the string value must be enclosed in quotation marks. In Delphi, we do not use double quotation marks for string values. We open the string value with a single quotation mark, and we also close the string value with a single quotation mark. String properties can be used to display static information to our users, like headers and titles, but it can also be used for input and output values. Almost anything that your users type on the keyboard can be considered string inputs. For example, a user can type a name and a surname in edits. String outputs are normally feedbacks or results that our programs produce. Outputs can be values that we want to save to a file or send to a printer. Or we can display string outputs in rich edits, list boxes, memos, and so on. Another way to keep our users informed with string outputs is to display errors, warnings, and informational messages in message boxes called dialog windows. When displaying string output, we must often combine two or more string values into one output. For example, if your user types a name and a surname into edits, our program can combine the name and the surname values into one string to produce a full name. We call this string concatenation. You concatenate or combine two or more strings with a plus sign. If you concatenate two strings, the plus is known as a concatenation operator. Here I illustrate to you what the result will be if I concatenate my name and my surname. I take the word Gerard and I concatenate it with the word Versaghi. The result is my full name. But be careful, as you can see there on the screen, the full name that is produced is without a space between my name and my surname. The space is also a text character. I must therefore also use a space in this concatenation. A better solution will look like this. I take the word Gerard and I first concatenate it with a space. To concatenate a space, you type the opening quotation mark, then you press your space bar and then you close the quote. After I enclose the space in single quotation marks, I concatenate that with the word Versaghi. The result is my full name, but this time there is a space between my name and my surname. In a future lesson I will demonstrate more advanced stuff when working with string values. For now, you will just learn the simple stuff. Let's go back to our translation project that we worked on in the last few lessons. Here we have two edits in the graphical user interface. Our user must type a first name and a surname into the edits. These edits provide the input for our program. When we click on the display button, our program must read the text properties that our user typed into the edits and display the output in the lines property of the memo. For example, if I type my name and surname into the edits, the output must read, "You added Gerard Versaghi to the memo." We are going to build this output string step by step. So I'm going to do a bit of coding and then I will run the application to view the result. And then I will do more coding and then I will test it again until I get the correct result. I want to do it like this because I want you to see the different results produced by the code as I'm doing the coding. Let's start by familiarizing ourselves with the components that we want to use. The two edits for the first name and surname are contained in the panel called P&L Personal Information. Go to the object tree view and click the plus next to P&L Personal Information to display its children. There you can see the first name edit is called EDT first name and the surname edit is called EDT surname. Now let's look at the properties in the Object Inspector. As you can see here, an edit doesn't have a caption property like a label or a button, but if you scroll down you will find the text property. Your user cannot directly type something into a caption, but he can type text directly into an edit. An edit has a text property because we normally require text input from our users. Now let's look at the memo. Click the memo to select it. There we can see that we called it MEM result. A memo doesn't have a text property like an edit. And if you scroll up, you will see it doesn't have a caption property like a label. The string values of a memo are added to a collection of lines. Scroll to the lines property and click on it. A little button displays in the cell next to the property's name. Click on that button. Another window pops up. This window is called the string list editor. When we created this application in lesson 13, I asked you to remove all the lines. Under the title of the string list editor, you can see that the line count is 0. You can add lines by typing them into the big white space in the center of this editor. But we are not going to add anything. Our users will add lines to the memo, so we must write code to facilitate that. Click the cancel button to close the editor. Okay, let's figure out what we want to do. We first must ask the 3 questions. What must change? How must it change? And when must it change? First, what must change? And the answer is a line must be added to MEM result. Now we ask the question, how must it change? And the answer is the line must display the words you added, followed by the name and the surname typed into the edits, followed by the words to the memo. Then we ask, when must it change? And the answer is the line must be added when the display button is clicked. Now we know what our code must do and that it must be executed when the display button is clicked. So double click on the display button. Delphi automatically creates the click event handler for BTN display. Let's apply all the stuff that we've learned so far. Use indentation between the begin and the end statement to type a comment. It must read, show the full name in the memo. On the next line type MEM. Press the control key and the spacebar simultaneously. MEM result is highlighted in the list that pops up. Press the enter key to select it. Type a dot. Type L. A lines property is highlighted. Press the enter key to select it. Type another dot. Type AD to highlight the word add. Press the enter key on your keyboard. Delphi automatically puts brackets behind the word add and your insertion point now appears between the 2 brackets. You can also see a small yellow text block. That is a tip that Delphi displays to us. It indicates to us that we must type a string between the 2 brackets. Now that is cool. Delphi even guides us with tips so that we don't type wrong values into our code. Okay, we are going to type the first part of the string between the 2 brackets. Type you added. Remember, this is a string data type, so you must enclose the words in single quotation marks. Type a semicolon after the closing bracket to end this instruction. Before we test this code, let's first analyze it. In our previous lessons, we assigned values to properties with the assignment operator. For example, we typed LBL first name dot caption followed by the assignment operator followed by the value, like first name. However, in this code we do not assign the value to the lines property of the memo. We add the string value by using the word add. Add is not a property, we call that a method. With a method we don't use the assignment operator to assign a value. A method is a piece of functionality that contains its own predefined code. In other words, you do not have to write tons of code to add string values to the memo. The add method already encapsulates the functionality. All you have to do is to give your string value to the add method and tell it to go and do its work. In this case, you gave the words you added to the add method. When the compiler executes this code, your string value will be added to the lines property of the memo. In the next lesson I will explain this concept again, and we will also learn about other predefined tasks provided by Delphi. Like I said before, we do this demo in steps, so this instruction is not complete yet. But let's first test this part. Run your application. Type your name and surname into the edits. Click the display button. We get the result in the memo. We added a line that displays "you added." Although you typed your name and your surname into the edits, the program doesn't display that yet because we didn't tell the program to do so. If you click the display button again, another line is added. Remember, the lines property is a collection of one or more lines. Close your form to return to your code. Put your insertion point between the closing quote and the closing bracket. Type a plus sign. Type EDT. Press Ctrl and Spacebar. EDT first name is highlighted. Press Enter. What I'm trying to do here is to combine the first name edit with the words "you added." In other words, I want to concatenate the words "you added" with the edit. Delphi is not going to like this, but let's run it to see what type of error we get. This is a common mistake made by many beginners. The error message reads "incompatible types, string and t-edit." Later you will learn a t-edit is a template or class from which an edit component is created. All you have to know now is that a t-edit is an edit. The message "incompatible types, string and t-edit" simply means that an edit and a string is not the same data type. An edit is a component. You cannot display a component as a string in the string property. Think about it. You do not really want to add the edit component to the memo. You actually want to add the text typed into the edit component to the memo. The edit's text is a string value and will therefore be compatible. Let's fix the problem. After EDT first name, type a dot, type a T, text is highlighted, press Enter. Now let's try it again. There it runs without errors. Type your name and surname into the edits. Click the display button. The memo now displays "you added Gerard." I didn't write the code to display my surname yet, only my first name was concatenated. If you look at the result, you will see that my name was concatenated without a space after the word added. Let's go and fix that. Close the form. Put your insertion point between the D and the closing quotation mark. Press the spacebar on your keyboard. Remember, a space is also a text character, so we include it as part of our string value. Run the application again. Type your name into the edits and click on the display button. The memo displays the correct result now. Now let's also concatenate the text in the surname edit. Close the form. Place your insertion point between the T and the closing bracket. Type the concatenation operator. Type EDT surname. Type a dot. Type text. We now also concatenated the text in EDT surname to the output that must be displayed in the memo. Run the application. Type your name and surname into the edits. Click the display button. The surname also displays in the result now, but without the space between the first name and the surname. Let's fix that. Close the form. Place your insertion point after the plus. Type a single quotation mark. Press the space bar. Type another single quotation mark. Type another concatenation operator. Here we concatenate the words "you added" with the text in EDT first name, and then we concatenate that with a space. and then we concatenate that with the text in EDT surname. Run the application, type your name and surname into the edits, click the display button. That looks much better. Okay, we must make a final change. Our output must read, you added Gerard Visagie to the memo. Close the form. Place your insertion point between the T and the closing bracket. Type a concatenation operator. Type the words to the memo between single quotation marks. Run the application. Type your name and surname into the edits. Click the display button. The result is now you added Gerard Visagie to the memo but without a space after the surname. Let's fix that too. Close the form. Type a space between the opening quotation mark and the word to. Run the application again. Type your name and surname into the edits. Click the display button, and that is exactly what I had in mind. The line that I added in the memo displays the string value with all the parts that I concatenated, including the spaces in their correct places. You can now replace your info with a different name and surname and click on the display button again. A second line is added to the lines property of the memo. Close the form again. As you can see, this instruction is quite long. If you have a long line of code, it can become very difficult and inconvenient to read your code. Long lines of code are also messy when you must print your code on paper. The code editor has a grey vertical line on the right hand side. This is a guideline to show you more or less how long your instructions must be. You can type long instructions on multiple lines. In other words, you may type part of the instruction on one line, and if it gets too long, you may continue with another part on the next line. For example, the last string value that I concatenated in this statement makes this line too long. It is behind the guideline. I can now go and put that part of the statement on its own line, like this. I put my insertion point in front of the last concatenation operator and I press my enter key. Let's see if Delphi has a problem with that. I run the program. Let me just fill this in. And click on display. Okay, no problem. Delphi is happy with that. Just be careful. You can't break a line up in the middle of a word or a string. You can go and explore this. Just remember to always test your program. In this lesson you learned how to use the add method to add a string value to the lines property of a memo. I explained that the add method is one of the predefined tasks provided for some of your Delphi components. In the next lesson we will explore more predefined or built-in tasks.